Okay. Hello, good evening, everyone. I think we are live now. My name is Solomon Jeremiah. I'm an MCT and I'm also an infrastructure expert. And today we would be talking about the cloud. Here with me is Emmanuel, and I also have Adekunle with me. So I think your mic is mute. Emmanuel and Adekunle. So I think you can also introduce yourself before we continue.
Hi everybody, my name is Emmanuel Itoje. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and also a cloud operation and security engineer and a Microsoft 365 subject matter expert. We are happy to have you join us on this event. Thank you.
Adekunle.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Adekunle Sarumi. Yeah, I'm a Microsoft 365 engineer, majorly modern workplace, and also a security engineer. I'm also a certified trainer for Microsoft, and I'm a cloud guy. I'm your cloud guy. Thank you,
Okay.
guys. You're welcome to be here.
Yeah, so thank you all for joining this live event. Like I said, this is going to be a talk, right? We are talking about the cloud. So, but what I would try to let people know about this event was the event. I had to come up with this event because I usually have trainings for people that want to find their career path in cloud. And the way it works, you train someone and then the person is out there doing something in tech and their friends are like, how did you, what happened, how did you transform? And they'll be like, okay, meet this guy. And when they come with a lot of questions, right? And these questions are similar to each other, like they are almost the same thing. Then I decided to come up with this event. And in this event, I have with me two other cloud guys that would also be covering some other topics while I just give the intro. So this we I'll be speaking generally about the cloud. I will just try to give you like an explanation of what the cloud is. I'm not going to be doing like training, or I'm not going to be here telling you types of cloud computing or the models, service models, and all of that. I'll just try to come down to the level where I can explain what the cloud is to you before I start talking about the opportunities and the careers you can path you can follow in the cloud before I then hand over to Adekunle, where he would discuss about the modern workspace place where he's more focused on now. So before I talk about the cloud, I just want to give the normal explanation most people give. If you ask someone what is the cloud, most people they'll ask the question like, what when you're talking about cloud, what do you mean? Or when somebody say I'm a cloud engineer, what exactly are you trying to talk about? So for me, for those that don't really have any idea of what the cloud is, I will just try to give a kind of scenario question. I'll try to give a story and then try to connect everything together. So look at it this way. We have people that have organizations, right? And probably you yourself, you're working in an organization or you probably want to start up something, right? When you're thinking of probably doing all this thing, you will be considering the fact that you need to get like a server, or even if the company is like a very small company, you're probably thinking of getting like a modem. You're also getting a storage drive where you will be storing the informations for your organization and other stuff. You probably, some people go as far as getting switches, router, the big ones, and then they also get a location or a room in their office where they stock this stuff, right? But when you set up all this stuff, right, you are now providing services to people within your organization. If you want to connect this with the cloud, I will also try to bring in one story again. The next story I'll be bringing up now is for those of us that are probably in Nigeria, because I have a lot of my questions coming from Nigeria also. We have something like the election coming up soon. And when you look at the election, it comes up after probably every 4 years. And when the election will be going on, the people that will be handling that election, their server will be having a lot of traffic, a lot of stuffs are going to be happening that day on their server. Now, after the election, what would be happening to those servers? They'll keep them down and wait for another 4 years. And if we look at the way things are flying now, like how advanced things are going, in the next 4 years, they might probably be ordering for a better server because the one they got 4 years back was is now outdated, right? And that's like spending more money, and is not, the management is not well there. So but if you look at cloud, what cloud does for us is, instead of me um buying these servers to attend to this whole people just once in 4 years, I can as well just pay for this service, and I use them over the internet, and I pay for what I'm using. And when I'm done using it, I'm done. Then I wait for the next 4 years and I bring up another, um, I come up with another payment plan if it will fit in with what I want. So when you look at cloud, when we are trying to explain cloud, we should also look at it in this other side, another story. Back then, when we were using Java phones, right? We're using Symbian phone, BlackBerry. We go to buy a phone and they say, okay, this phone is 64 gig or 32 gig, and you get like a memory card, you slot it into the phone, right? Once the memory is used up, that's all. You either try deleting stuffs, or you probably look for a way to get a higher memory card or something. But now you can see somebody saying, okay, I'm going to get a phone. And when the person gets this phone, he will say, oh, I'm using an iPhone, and the iPhone is 64 gig. But when you see the information the person is pulling down from the iPhone, it will be more than 64 gig. You ask the person, oh, where do you have all these videos from? Oh, it's on my iCloud. I just stored it on my iCloud. Now the person is actually using the cloud, right? And the person is just paying for what they are using. Example of the iCloud I just gave as an example is what a lot of most of the people asking me this question they know about. If they are not using iCloud, they are probably using OneDrive. If they're not using OneDrive, they're using Google Drive. One way or the other, we've seen ourselves using the cloud. And if I try to explain what the cloud is, like cloud computing, it is providing of all these services that are in demand over the internet on a pay as you go service. On pay as you go, instead of you pay for only what you use, and these services that are being provided are services that are in demand. And example of the services are network storage, we have applications and all of that. All of these services, you can just come to the cloud and you access it from wherever you are. While you're accessing this service, you pay for what you want to use, and then you're done. Looking at the cloud also, we have people that provide these services. We have cloud service providers, and most of the we have a lot of them, but the popular ones you'll be hearing of Microsoft, you'll be hearing of AWS, and you'll also be hearing of Google Cloud. We also have IBM. There are a lot of them out there, right? But these are the most popular ones out there. And they are the service providers that provide these on-demand services for people to use. If we now want to continue talking about the cloud, right? After explaining all this, I spoke about paying for services that you want to use instead of going to get something like a hardware and you're not really using it at a particular time, and after some time you go back to use it and you're just spending more. So these cloud service providers are there, and we also have people that use these services. We have enterprise business, we have some other government organization, they use these cloud services. Now, why I'm making mention of the cloud providers and I'm also talking of enterprise organization is because I want to answer the question about career paths in the cloud. Now, if you look at cloud service, now we have service the providers. Now think about it this way: for them to be providing these services for us, they have to be people that are working behind scene to make the service available when the end user wants to use it. Then we have the enterprise organizations that are also using the service. Now, for them to use this service, they need people who can also configure stuffs around these services. If, for example, you're using Microsoft, you might hear me talking about Microsoft a lot, yeah, because that's where I have my community, right? So, but there are other cloud services out there. So, if maybe an enterprise organization now is trying to use some of the services that Microsoft is providing, they need to have their in-house team that will be working on these services. They need people that will probably configure this, plan all of these services, and then deliver it to their business, right? And on the other side, where we have the cloud provider like Microsoft, they have their own internal engineers that is making these services available for the enterprise organizations and other organizations that will be using it. Now, are you seeing what I'm trying to talk about? That means we have opportunities for you to work in the service provider end, and you still have opportunity to work at the enterprise end, right? You also have opportunities to also do some configuring in the side of other companies, right? Now, when we have these two people standing, we also have other companies, they are partners to these service providers. So what they do, they have engineers that fix issues, right? So when they fix issues on any of this, maybe we have your enterprise engineer trying to configure something and there's a bug or something, he has to raise the support. By the time he's raising this support, there's an engineer from the service provider that will be fixing the issue for you, right? So most times the engineer fixing it from the service provider might just be a partner organization. So now we have another partner organization that's probably going to have a lot of engineers working in their own end. So if you look at the cloud, there are a whole lot of opportunities in the cloud when we are talking about the cloud. So one thing I also want to try to touch is the opportunities in the cloud. Most of the opportunities you'll be hearing when people are talking about the cloud is you see people talking about cloud engineer. You also hear people say cloud architects, solution architects. Yep, we have cloud engineers now. So let me just try to break these three positions. Then I will also tell you about other opportunities you can get yourself involved in. It's not just looking at, oh, cloud engineer, what is happening there as a cloud engineer, what is happening here as a cloud architect. So I will just be fast because of time so that the next person can actually just take over. From the first thing I said, which is cloud engineer, right? For cloud engineers, they are mostly the guys that configure these stuffs, they build it, they work on the services, right? That's exactly what the cloud engineers they do. They work on these services, they configure these services. That is their own responsibilities, right? We also have the architects. These architects, they are more like engineers. They understand the services and they also understand the business side of the services, right? They collaborate with other business that needs cloud services and they do the design, implementation, and all of that, just like the name implies, architect, right? Then we also have the solution architect. So for the solution architect, you see some people saying, "Oh, I'm a solution architect." What it simply means is the solution architects most times are kind of narrowed down to a particular service provider. So somebody can be a solution architect, but the person is just going to be helping you with implementing designs that are just for a particular cloud service provider. Just like I mentioned earlier, Microsoft, you can be a cloud You can be a solution architect for Microsoft. That means you are implementing designs that are related to Microsoft. So after mentioning all this, most times people come into the cloud, they are confused with, am I going to be a cloud engineer? Am I going to do the architect? Am I trying to do, yeah? So, but I always try to tell them you don't have to think about that when you want to start. Most times, the first thing I always try to the, the first thing I try to see how to inform them about is, first of all, just try to understand where you're going to. Sometimes where you're actually going to might not actually be where you're starting from. Why I'm saying this is I have friends that are now cybersecurity experts working in big firms. They did not just start as cybersecurity experts. We have a lot of services that Microsoft is providing. We have SaaS application, which is one of the cloud services they call SaaS. I'm why I'm trying to just explain that is because I'm talking to people that probably do not have deep knowledge. So I'm not meant to be mentioning SaaS, but Microsoft have what we call M365, right? In M365, we have what they call Exchange Online. Now, in Exchange Online, there are a lot of configuration that goes in there, and we have engineers that are Exchange Online engineers. Now, most of these engineers, while working as an Exchange Online engineer, they have the ability to also work in what we call security and compliance. They touch purview, they create DLP, they deal with a lot. Now, when they are working as Exchange Online engineer, they start working with stuffs that are related to security and all of that. And then their interest for cybersecurity can start growing and they start looking into cybersecurity. They can start pursuing their career in cybersecurity, which is something just by the side. We also have technical support engineer, which can also be in Exchange, like I mentioned. It can be in Teams. Microsoft, they have Teams. We also have SharePoint. There are a lot of other roles that you can actually occupy in the cloud space. You just need to understand the SaaS application itself. And when you understand the SaaS application, you can start providing services for people. And most times, you don't even really need to um, work in an organization to start doing this whole engineering stuff. If you build your career very well, you know what you're doing. We have organizations out there, they'll be like, oh, I'm trying to set up a mail flow. I don't know what's stopping my mail from flowing. And you, as an exchange guy, you will just come and say, okay, I can help you fix this. And you bargain the price. And that's how you can start doing your own side gig. And you're working in the cloud, to be frank. And we also have people that have experience as network engineers. They know how to crimp cables, connect cables, create VLANs, do trunking on Cisco router and all of that. But then they are still asking what's happening in the cloud. We have people that work as cloud network engineers. You can actually use your network skill on the cloud, just like Microsoft that I keep mentioning, right? We have VNets. You can create network, you can create subnets, and they are just the CDRE, they are the same thing with the normal network you know about. So you can do all of these on the cloud, and there are lots more skills in the cloud that I can't cover right now. I already spoke about the modern workspace. We have modern workspace consultants, people that they try to set up modern workplace for organization, which is also something you can look at in the long run. So I'm going to pause right now. I would be giving switching how like I'll be passing the baton to Adekunle now, so he can just tell us from his own side of view what exactly is the modern workspace that people talk about. Like he should just give us an example of that. Yeah. So I would leave the I would what I am saying. Adekunle, I think the right word is just take over. Yeah, that's what you should
All
do.
right. Thanks, Solomon. Thanks so much. Yeah. Hello, guys. Thank you guys for joining. It's been so great from all the engagements we are seeing. We're also looking forward to your questions. So, just as Solomon has said, he has been able to lay a very good foundation. And I'll just try to reintroduce myself again. My name is Adekunle Sarumi. Most of you might know me. I'm a modern workplace engineer. I currently work with one of the Microsoft partners here in Nigeria. And I'm also a security engineer as well. majorly in deploying security solutions and also engineering security solutions alike. So modern workplace, as we've said, is one of Microsoft's solutions that has been provided over time. And I'll say it has got more attention after the rise of the COVID-19 pandemic. So after that, after the COVID-19, companies were looking forward to how they could sustain user productivity. People were not trying to come back to the offices and everything, and work needed to be done. So this was one of the major push to ensure that we had users communicating and we had productivity going on among users that were situated in different countries. Of course, we know how some people had to travel down to the village during the pandemic. They couldn't stay in their cities. Some had to leave jobs and everything. But Microsoft was able to reintroduce the modern workplace, and the modern workplace is actually just a set of solutions and services that are actually designed to help your organizations improve productivity, collaboration, and also communication. So it consists of your Office 365. Office 365 has now been reimagined into the Microsoft 365. So it used to be known as the Office 365 that has your Microsoft Word, Excel, and the likes. I'm sure we are very, very used to this because we some of us have the add, or let me say, add the opportunity of getting this from a product key or something. If you are in Lagos, if you're in Nigeria, I'm sure you know Tigba. That's where most of us usually go to get our product keys for Office, Word, Excel, and the likes. But now this is the online version. This is the one that you can be able to use to collaborate. You can use to communicate real time. So it was provided by Microsoft. Part of the modern workplace tools also is the Microsoft Teams, is the Microsoft SharePoint, OneDrive, and also your Windows 10. So I would say communication as it speaks to Microsoft is actually a tripod of these three applications, these three solutions: my Office 365, Microsoft Teams, and SharePoint, such in a way that by the time you're working on a particular solution, say I'm working from Nigeria and we have Solomon working from the UK, we can always work on documents real time such that I can make use of the same documents and then we are reporting and there's collaboration, there's enhanced productivity between the both of us, or Emmanuel in another state or in another region. We could all be working on the same documents at the same time and be getting real-time evaluations. So I could have one document I'm working on and I don't have to save and send and wait for edits before it comes back and then I have to re-edit again and send, and maybe between the manager and the staff and stuff like that. So this is one of the main purpose of the modern workplace. It's also part of the modern workplace also is the security side. So this is another aspect that's very interesting as well, because we have users that, for example, we have most of us, maybe not all of us, would actually be working maybe hybrid or we are working full-time remote jobs. How are companies able to monitor devices? How are they able to monitor the applications, the company data that is available to your devices? For example, some companies might not provide endpoints for you. They may actually require that you make use of your devices. This is the case of the BYOD. You are bringing your device into the organization. How am I sure that my company's data would not be leaked through this endpoints that is somewhere far away, maybe in Russia or Afghanistan, because it's part of the team, but then he also needs to report to the organization. So this is part of the modern workplace where we have security covering your devices. As we go on, we'll talk about Intune, how you can use Intune to monitor devices. We talk about mobile device management, mobile application management as well. I don't know if some of us have realized that there are some companies whereby they send you documents and you can't view it. This is because some of them have been locked. Sorry, in the you might want to call it locked, but then it's protected in a way such that if you are not in that organization and you have access to that data, the most you can do is just to see probably the name of that data. You may not be able to access it, and that is because there's been some protections and there's been some encryption on this particular data. So that is part of the modern workplace, is the solution that has been provided by Microsoft. And then we as a modern workplace engineer, my day-to-day job is to ensure that we are deploying these services: Office 365, Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, Windows 10 to customers, as well as bringing in the security part, such that we're talking about endpoint security and endpoint management. Are you trying to manage your Windows devices? Are you trying to manage Apple devices, Android devices as well? All this can be managed just to make sure that users are secured while being productive. So this is the main aim of the modern workplace. Microsoft has been able to understand that after the pandemic, not everyone is going to be present in the office. It's easy if everyone is in the office. You can always set up a VPN and you're making sure that nobody, I don't care who you are, you can't leave that particular DMZ or something like that. But then imagine you have users or you have staffs that are distributed over the 7 continents of the world, and then you have to communicate. How is this possible? We have the Microsoft Teams available. It's also one of a particular streaming channel. If we're not doing this on this particular streaming channel, I'm sure we must have obviously utilized the Microsoft Teams. It's part of that. You can use it for your meetings. You can also use it for webinars, live events, something like this as well. Then we have the SharePoint. The SharePoint is actually a repository. So yeah, I'm going to go back to that example of working on a particular document with Solomon in UK and Emmanuel in the US, something like that. If I was going to work on that document, I could just probably save it on a particular SharePoint file and give access to Solomon. I could even make references and be like, Solomon, this particular line, please edit this. And I don't have to save it locally on my PC, then we upload it to the line online and then wait for Solomon to respond after a number of days. Maybe he remembers to check his mail or something. He can always get real-time access to this document. So the repository where these files are saved is called SharePoint. And aside being a repository, there's a lot that can be done with SharePoint. It can be used as an intranet site for organizations. We've had different organizations where we've deployed SharePoint as a site where users use it as an intranet service. They go there for companies, data, information, quick links in the organization. And then OneDrive. So this is one particular thing that I'm sure almost everyone is making use of. If you're on an Android phone and then probably you have an account, you may not know you have a Gmail account. You're obviously using Google Drive. If you have a Microsoft account, personal Microsoft account, you're obviously making use of OneDrive. This is also available as part of the modern workplace solution, where you have up to 5 terabytes of space for you to save your personal documents, even as part of an organization. OneDrive is available for you. It's called the OneDrive for Business. It comes with that. So part of the modern workplace, there is also a subscription to it. There's a tenant setting to it. But the most important thing is that it's the perfect solution for your modern workplace. We're talking about 2,000 modern workplaces, startup organizations, big top 4 organizations as well. We have a lot of people moving to the cloud. So in moving to the cloud, how would you want to modernize your workplace? This is the main and exact reason why we have the Microsoft Modern Workplace. So I'm sure as we go on, so I don't take so much time, we'll see how you can obviously utilize this, how you can make use of it. And then if you have any questions, I would be in the chat, would be responding to your questions. So I'm sure I've been able to give you just a glimpse of what the modern workplace is and the security attached to it. So very quickly, I'll be handing over to Emmanuel to just cap this up for us as we go on. So please, we're waiting in the comment section for your questions as we go on. Thank you.
Awesome, Adegunle and Solomon. That was actually very insightful. Oh yes, I'll be talking briefly about, because I get this question a lot. How can a novice start? Before I go, my name is Emmanuel Itoje. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, and I'm also a Microsoft 365 subject matter expert. Um, Somebody that is a novice that doesn't know anything about tech. Maybe the person is coming from a non-tech background, or the person is just coming from maybe just finishing the college, the universities, and he doesn't know where to start from the cloud computing. So one of the tracks I personally recommend is either you're starting with Microsoft 365 or Microsoft Power Platform, because those two software as a service, enables you to be able to do a lot in the cloud computing without necessarily have a coding skill. I can't remember the last time I actually wrote any code or even write PowerShell script, because I don't do much of automations. Whatever is not happening, whatever I'm not doing on the admin center, either from the SharePoint point of view, the Teams admin center, or the Exchange admin center, I just leave it there. I prefer to use the administrator because I feel that the GUI is actually quite easy, and anyone coming into the cloud computing space can actually, use these tools, because it's just click. You're clicking, you want to do something, you're writing something, or you're clicking something. And the same thing goes for the Power Platform too. So the Power Platform is actually a product name for the Power Apps, the Power BI, the Power Virtual Agents, the Power Automates. They are also cloud computing, because the statistics shows that it took about a long time before we could raise over 4,000 developers, but we don't have the same time. But organization needs business apps to operate, and since most organizations are moving to the cloud already, with low code, no code, like the Power Platform, which is actually topping in the industry, people can learn. I've seen testimony on LinkedIn with those young kids from India, and they were able to start a journey in Power Platform. They were able to cover the PA 900. But what is more important in the cloud is actually you getting your hands dirty, like doing the stuff, knowing what to do. And a better place or a best place to actually learn the stuff is either you join a community or you use a Microsoft Learn, which is actually available as a Microsoft library or a Microsoft security. So I actually encourage you, someone that is coming into cloud as a novice, choose a tracks in Microsoft 365 or a tracks in Power Platform. And if you feel that you can choose a tracks in Azure Fundamentals also, that is also another tracks that you can consider in your journey to cloud computing. And as my other two colleagues have said concerning the cloud, it's something that is actually anyone can learn it. And there are lots of career opportunities in cloud. I'm going to briefly talk about my journey into cloud. Now, when I finished the high school, I actually had a few knowledge in tech. I studied electrical electronics and computer engineering. I was because of the technology, what I was doing basically was to train people on how to use our Microsoft productivity tools like the Office, the Word, Excel, the PowerPoint, Access, and the likes. But I never had any knowledge about cloud computing until I joined a company in Lagos, and the company is actually one of the Microsoft partner. We're exposed to cloud. For over 1 year, I saw a question in the chat that was asked by Siva. He wanted to know if it's about certifications or about the getting the experience. I'll recommend, just like our MVP has said in the chat, get your hands dirty. I didn't write any Microsoft certification until after 1 year when I started my journey into cloud. The certifications is actually just for you to validate your skills in cloud. But when you have the hands-on experience, you'll be confident enough to walk into an interview. You're telling the hiring manager, this is what I know. And you're able to negotiate based on your experience. Of course, the certification will get you to the interview, but at the end of the day, what actually gives you the job is actually your experience, the value you are providing. We see a lot of people, writing certifications and they don't have the hands-on experience. And look, the internet has a lot of free resources from the Microsoft Learn, from the GitHub repository. You can learn a lot about the cloud computing. And if you are the type that you feel, oh, I need a mentorship or to be in a class to study in a group, then the community part is actually what I recommend. And now a funny story back when I wanted to join it back in when I wanted to join into cloud, I was struggling at first, but I felt at some point I just needed to actually put in the effort and learn the cloud. Then I stumbled on having on the Microsoft Learn. From the Microsoft Learn, I was able to actually go through the learning parts from the fundamentals. And because when I started the journey, I love the cloud. And the Microsoft Cloud has different parts. We have the Microsoft 365 tracks, we have the Azure tracks, we have the Power Platform tracks, we have the Dynamics 365 tracks. I had to actually, go through the fundamentals of every of this track, like covering everything. So even validate my skills, I wrote certifications on all the fundamentals. And I find out that for me, the part I would like to specialize is on Microsoft 365 or Microsoft Azure operation, that's the cloud operations and the security part. And I encourage each and every one of us on this call, if you're really going into the Microsoft stack, I encourage you to start with either Microsoft 365 or Power Platform, because you actually see something that you can actually relate with, and it's something you are doing, you are getting the results on a go. So the cloud computing, it's a journey that I will encourage each and every one of us. Thank you. I'll hand over back to Solomon to continue from there. And if you have any questions, you can drop your questions in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel and Adekunle. Like, I really appreciate your time for joining us today. And also, I would also like to, before we continue, I also like to give a shout out to Dan Ray. He has actually been really supportive. This streaming that is actually going on now, he was, I would say, he's the mastermind behind the streaming that we are doing today. Yeah. And That's one of the benefits of community, right? I've never seen him before, right? It's still the community that Emmanuel was talking about that is working now, because he saw me on LinkedIn and then I joined their events and I tried as much as possible to contribute, right? And today I am streaming with his sponsorship. Let me say he's sponsoring my streaming. Yeah. So there are a lot of questions I see coming up, right? And one of the question was the skill or the certification, which Emmanuel touched. So for me, when I look at people saying the skill or the certifications, right, I always tell people, if you can find your way to maneuver the exam, you would not maneuver the job when it's time for you to work, right? You can probably be an exchange administrator. You can probably write one of the exams, but when it is time to actually work, your certifications will not be doing the job for you. So what I always advise people is try to get your hand dirty as much as possible. And if you're also looking at Microsoft, Microsoft has a lot of resources that you can learn. When I mean learn, you can practice. They have developers accounts. You can try stuff. You can see what is actually happening. The Microsoft Learn is there. You can implement those stuffs you're learning, see what they're actually doing in real time. And with that, you can actually start building your career in the cloud space. So that's for the question regarding the skill or certification. So you can get both if you actually want to validate what you've learned, which I would say is fine. So I am also seeing somebody saying, how long will it take to learn cloud engineering? So that question, I always tell people, when it comes to learning, it has to do with personal will. For person A, he can actually use 6 months to become whatsoever he wants to become. And for person B, it can probably take 2 years. So why I say it has to do with personal will is how much time you're putting into something, how much time you're practicing something. So if me and maybe Emmanuel, we are trying to learn about the cloud, and Emmanuel is using 30 minutes of his time every day to practice what he's learning. He's going through documentation and reading, and me, I'm probably doing mine every weekend. There's no way I would catch up with him. So, and I always give one advice to people that want to learn any skill. It doesn't just have to be cloud computing, cloud engineer, or whatsoever. Just try to give it that first 1 year. The first 1 year would be like where you would do a lot of work. You just have to give it that 1 year to know everything around the technology. Now, after that 1 year, you will be learning now, but the way you're learning will change. Because as I'm talking to you now, if probably somebody say, oh, the MX record is where the issue is coming from, I can easily understand what the person is saying. But for you that is just starting, you don't know what MX record is. So for you to find solution to that, you have to look for what MX record is. And after getting the answer to what MX record is, before you start looking for what the solution to what the person is talking about. So, but if you've gotten through the stage of where you've passed the basic knowledge of, you know what this is, you know what this is, you know where this is, and now you're just trying to fix stuff, build stuff, and all of that, yeah, you would now see the workload for you as kind of reduced. So another thing Emmanuel made mention of was about for those saying, oh, I don't know maths, coding and all of it, right? We see
So someone
M365.
actually asked,
You said?
do I need an IT background? Someone actually asked that, do I need an IT background to be a cloud engineer?
Of course
And
is
how can
no.
a newbie start?
So for that question, I would say is no. You don't need an IT background. So if I'm saying no now, I'm not saying no from the, because if I say, oh, you don't need an IT background, and I myself, I would say I came in with an IT background, the question would be, oh, but you studied computer science, you were already a web developer, and then you switch. So the question would not sit well. So why I'm saying no is because I one of the person I trained, right? The She actually studied philosophy and she never worked in any IT firm, right? But after going through my training, as I'm talking now, she's a technical support engineer for Microsoft, right? She didn't have any, her course was not even related to maths or um anything. It wasn't even related to science. It was far from science. And today she's a technical support engineer. So for the question about can someone with a no IT background get into tech, of course, trust me, it is very easy. So the what I would just say, when you're coming in, if you look at Microsoft, sometimes I know for a beginner it is broad. From once you're just stepping in, you're hearing about region, and you're hearing about web services, VNet, you're hearing a lot, right? You're hearing of virtual machines, containers, and you're asking yourself, what exactly am I coming here to do, right? So when you're coming in as a beginner, sometimes um I always tell people you can learn this on your own, because me personally, my tech journey has always been self-taught, but I know it is actually hard, right? Because some of the stuffs I learned from people, I think it was easier for me for someone to just tell me like, oh, this is this. If you want to do this, you just do this. I just know where my research is going to straight up. But for some that I did on my own, I had to go to A, B, C, D, and then I just realized, oh, it's actually F I'm looking for. But before getting to F, I had to turn around, right? Because there was nobody to like tell me, oh, this is where you're going to. So sometimes you need that guide, you need that community, you need to join that community where you can actually, it's not just about joining community, because people, once they go to like joining communities, they are just in the community for like, oh, what is this person posting about? Okay, let me like it. So that's what most people, their own idea of joining community. But when you join community is, you see somebody talking about something, you probably go and do your research about that thing, and then you also contribute about what the person is talking about. You would probably get a faster response from that person, because now the person would know that, okay, you have an idea of what he's saying, and the person can also give you like more knowledge regarding that particular topic. So if you join a community and you're always out there, you're always ready to learn, you would discover that in the long run, you will learn faster than someone that is just probably um, coming up to an event anytime they feel like, or just opening their M365 and they say, okay, today I just want to add a domain to M365. So after they are done adding it, oh, everything is green, healthy. Oh, I don't have anything to do still next month. So you won't be on the same level with that person, because you've already added the domain. You're trying to see why the MX is not working. You're understanding what is priority. Why do I have to put zero here? You're going to study why zero should be here. You're saying, okay, what's TTL? All those things, you're paying details to stuffs, and then you're asking people. Most times, I also tell people, especially when I want to train people, one of the what will I say? One of the advice I give to them, right, is know how to ask questions, because it can help you in the long run. Knowing how to ask questions simply means I'm working on a particular project, or I'm trying to configure something and I have an issue. There are two kind of questions you will get from people. Now there's one person that will come and tell you, I'm having an error when I add my MX record, or I'm having an error when I connect my domain. Now that's one person's reply. I'm having an error. The person is just telling you I'm having an error. The second person that is actually working will say, oh, I'm trying to add my MX record. I copied it. I went to the domain registrar. I added the values. I've done everything. So after doing it, I waited for like 30 minutes, refreshed my page. After refreshing my page, this is the error I'm getting. And they send you screenshots. Now, this second person, you can easily have a conversation with that person, because now you know exactly where the error might likely come from. You already have screenshots, and you can even do your personal research before reaching out to the person. The other person is just telling you, I am having an error configuring my domain. So these are some of the basic things you need to learn, and this does not just stop you for it doesn't just have to do with if you're learning cloud, right? generally, even if you're doing other tech skills and all of it. So try to just see how you can build your skill in learning. You keep learning, you keep learning. And most times I also meet some people I train that are not really serious. They just come and go, like they after they say, oh, I'm having issues. I tell them for some reason, it's not like I'm the best, right? But I know I'm training you and I know more at this point more than you. You can be better than me, right? But then you don't even put in much, you don't pay more attention, you don't try to work hard, you just work anytime you like and then you're back like that. But me, that I've probably done more, I'm still learning because I know it is a learning phase. It doesn't stop, you just keep learning. And for those of you that are probably in the tech space that you've already started using M365 and the rest, you will see that even Microsoft, they don't stop. I was talking to someone the other day. I said, I even if I have nothing doing in a particular Microsoft Plat service, I just go there to look at it. You can actually wake up in M365 and your security and compliance, a particular tab where you go to configure something is missing. Now, it's not like there's a problem. Microsoft has updated their platform, they've moved that service to somewhere else. They've renamed it to Purview instead of, oh, this was security and compliance. They've changed a lot. So if you as a person that is trying to say, oh, I need to get into tech cloud, and how long do I need to get into cloud, you're not doing all this hard work from your end. Yeah, I think the time will have to do with you personally, not a general standard time like, okay, in 3 months you're done. If you can make it in 3 months, I don't tell people that nothing is impossible, because a lot of things have shocked me in this world, right? So I always tell people, you can give it a try. If it goes well, that's fine. But if it doesn't, so for the question about um the cloud, how long and
Uh,
all
let
of
me
that,
let
yeah.
me let me pick the other questions. Yeah. So the next question is I have no taste for mathematics. Does cloud engineering involve calculations? How about writing so many codes?
The that You want me to answer the question?
Yeah, I can answer the
Okay, okay,
question
okay, okay, okay.
actually.
Let me
So
answer
for
for
this
that.
now,
Okay. Oh, if you want to
no,
go,
can go ahead. Can go
okay,
ahead.
okay.
Yeah.
So for about code, um, when you want to come to cloud, right? I always tell people, this particular question, I'm not supposed to be the one answering it, because I already had like when I mean I'm not, because I'm not a good example for this question, because I already had like programming experience and all of that before coming to the cloud. But then I have people that they do not really have like the programming experience. Now, when you're coming into cloud, most times I tell people you can come from the cool side, like the M365 and all of it. You would not really need to write code. You just probably would be writing script. Script is more easier to understand. Like for me, I always tell people script is like you're talking to someone until you start getting in depth, which we Microsoft, you always see people using PowerShell, right? Or CLI for Azure, right? But then it's not something that you should be running away like. You don't need to say, oh, I need to understand classes, object-oriented programming, paradigms. I need to understand inheritance and all of that. You don't really need to know that. And Emmanuel mentioned earlier about the Power Platform, which is no code or low code, which even if you don't have like deep knowledge of programming, you can actually come in there and still builds stuffs on it. So I don't think thinking about how to code or mathematics should be a hindrance for you to come into the cloud. And if you also go on the internet, you see it's one of the technology that is rising, is not stopping. And most organizations, you see them moving to the cloud also. You will hear people say, oh, we are migrating to the cloud, because it is more like the future tech skill now that most people are also running into. So that's for the person that said about, spoke about programming or mathematics. Another person is talking about AWS. So for AWS, the direct way I would answer your AWS question is, if you've have if you've heard people talking about programming, like they say, oh, I can code in Java. For someone that codes in Java, you would learn the fundamentals of programming, like you're learning classes, like I mentioned earlier, methods, how they work, how to get object-oriented programming. Now, when you've learned all, you've studied all of this, right? You understand how it works, and then you can comfortably write your Java code. What this simply means is, if you decide to say, I want to start writing my codes in Python or C Sharp, you don't need to learn what a class is anymore. You don't need to learn what inheritance is, polymorphism. You're not learning all those stuffs again. What you're just going to be focusing more on, you'll be focusing on the syntax. How do they build a class in C Sharp? That's what you'll be looking at. You won't be asking, what's a class, first of all. You'll be looking for how they build a class in C Sharp. So when you're talking about AWS, I said it earlier, I'm more of Microsoft. I've worked with Google Cloud. I've also worked with Google Workspace, but I'm more of Microsoft. If you learn one, you can always switch. If you want to switch to AWS, you'll see that everything happening, they are the same thing. They just probably have different names. If you want to build your VMs, you want to build your network, you load balancing, you can still do that on AWS. It's just that you're going to be seeing it with a different name. But you, the fact that you already have that knowledge and you're already doing that, maybe as a DevOps in Azure and all of that, you understand Kubernetes, containers, and all of that, you can just move over to AWS and you're just going to learn what you need to learn, maybe the naming convention and all of that, and you're up and running. You can as well just look for communities in that particular field. Yeah, so that's for the
All right, Simon,
AWS
I
question.
have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, let me pick this question. So, Chudi is asking that how do we get our hands dirty? So, there are actually two ways to actually get your hands dirty in cloud. Let's say, for example, for the Microsoft 365. So Microsoft has a developer's account that you can set up. The developer's accounts give you access to Microsoft 365 E5 subscription without audio conversion. So this subscription, it has everything in the modern workspace. And you can I'll be sharing the link with how you can actually set it up for you. Then but what is more important is that for other cloud platform, like the Microsoft make it so easy that if you want to learn maybe a particular, you're going to write any particular exams, all you just have to do is go to github.com. From the github.com, search the exam code. And once you search the exam code, what is going to happen is that you're going to see a live, like a step by step on how you can practice a lab. It's going to be available for you for every modules, and that's actually something I use whenever I want to learn a particular, maybe I want to write a particular exams, because I learn by hands-on. So I go to the github.com. Let's say I want to learn exams on, I want to write exit 104, for example, now Azure Administrator. I just type exit 104 on the GitHub. The first thing there, you see Microsoft Learn slash exit 104. When you click on that, it's going to give you module by modules according to the way it is in the Microsoft Learn itself. But those are fully practical, as in you are seeing what you're doing, you're deploying the virtual machines, you're deploying the storage, you're doing everything as a go. So that's actually one of the ways to get your hands dirty. And somebody else is asking that, how do I join a community? So for community, there are a lot of community boards that are in Nigeria, and the ones that Solomon belongs to, like the one in Nigeria, like we have a Microsoft 365 user group community in Nigeria. We have the Azure Nigeria group that you can join. We also have the AWS community group you can join. We have the Dynamics 365 and Power Platform community group you can join. After this event, a form will be shared with you for you to give your feedback. From the emails, we'll be able to send the list of different community, the WhatsApp link for you to join, and just feel free to drop your comments in the feedbacks, and from there we'll be able to get your email address, and we'll send you an email to with the link to join each of those communities. Thank you.
Okay. So I just want to I see Jay asking a question, and the question is asking is what are the basic certifications we can start with after being familiar with any of the Microsoft cloud services. So for Microsoft, it is very straightforward. If you if you're studying Azure, what you should just look for in the certification code is the ones you see with 900. So what that simply means for the ones that have 900 is their fundamentals. So you see AZ900, that's for Azure fundamentals. We even have AI fundamentals. We also have PL. We also have
DP
MS. Yes,
fundamentals,
DP. Yeah.
MB.
So you just see the 900. So once you do those ones, and you also see them having like 1 star on them. So those are the fundamentals. They have 1 star. So once you're comfortable with the fundamentals, you can then move to the associates, which they have 2 stars on them. If you go to check Microsoft certifications, the ones with the 2 stars are the associates. Then once you see yourself that, okay, I understand this, you can now start combining certifications to get your expert badge. Yeah. So that's the answer for this particular question.
Thank you, Solomon, for that. So,
Mm.
Kunle, there is a question for you. So, Toby is asking the question that I'm really curious about the security of devices in the modern workspace. Can you help throw more light to that, Adekunle?
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for bringing up response. Well, actually, I am sure I made mention of Intune. It's actually called the endpoint manager as well. So there are actually two solutions to the endpoint management. When I say endpoint, I'm talking about devices, and I'm speaking mostly to maybe Windows 10 devices as we are more used to in this part of the technology and stuffs. So we are looking at Windows 10 devices, how we can protect them. So we have like I would say an on-premises solution that some of us know as the SCC, System Center Control Management. It's now also called the Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager. It's like an on-premises solution for organizations that still have maybe some infrastructure on-prem. While for the online solution, which I'm preaching on, is the endpoint manager, and it can also be called the Intune. So when you're looking at securing your devices in this modern workspace, what we employ for most organizations and most startups and most companies we work with is the use of the Intune as an endpoint manager. So the endpoint manager helps you to manage your devices such that you get daily inventories, you're able to track devices. You can easily remote wipe devices as long as they are online. Intune, thank you. I can see a response from Okwemi in the chat. Once your devices are enrolled, so organizations just need to, in the tenants, it's also subscription based. So most of everything you do online, I'm sure Solomon covered this, whereby you are paying as you go. It's also that same format you are paying. So as you pay for this subscription, you get the services. It's subscription based. You just need to register for this, and you are able to manage your devices. You can you can remote wipe devices. You can also run your update rings on your devices right from the Intune, and it gives you a list of all devices that have been enrolled. So for every user that probably has a device they're using that has been enrolled, you get every information, the last time they were signed on, the kind of applications you have on it. At some later point, you can even look at conditional access with your Intune, such that if you want companies, maybe a company xyz.com, you don't want users to access your mail from their regular phones, you can use Intune also to also push this policy such that only company devices can access your email. I don't want to know where you're bringing your device from. You won't be able to access your company's data. So Intune is the main security of devices. And then when we are now looking at maybe antivirus solutions, tracking viruses or tracking threats on these devices, we now employ the use of the Defender for Endpoints. The Defender for Endpoints is quite wide. I don't want to bore us, but then it's actually a part of a suite called the Microsoft Defenders. The Microsoft Defender, it's a very big suite. It contains 4 defenders. We have the Defender for Endpoints. That's the defense for your Windows devices, your normal clients devices. We have Defender for Cloud, which is cloud app security, the kind of applications companies will be putting in the cloud. We have the Defender for Identity. Now, the identities your users, these are your staffs in the organization. How do you protect these identities from cyber threats online? And then lastly, we have the Defender for Office 365. So I'm sure we remember when I was talking about the modern workspace, I said Office 365 contains your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and the likes. Your Defender for Office 365 is that protection on them, such that I'm working on the document and then I only want Solomon and Emmanuel to be able to access it. I can create policies such that I'm protecting my document. I can also protect anti-spam policies, anti-malware policies, such that if you try to send me any URL, it can be easily detonated in those emails. So it's part of the Defender. So majorly, so I don't go so far from your question, your management for devices in modern workspace is through the Intune, called also known as the Microsoft Endpoint Manager, and a security part again called Defender for Endpoint. Thank you. Thank you, Emmanuel.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank you
very
so
much,
much.
Adekunle. One more question that I'm seeing in the chat. So I can't pronounce his name. Udom. She's asking that I want to ask, are there remote internships on Microsoft Cloud
Okay.
Computing resources? That's number one question. The number two question: which community can you recommend for a beginner? So let me pick the second part, the number two question, Udom. So I'm currently a co-lead at Microsoft 365 Security Nigerian User Group, and I'm also the project lead for the programs lead for Microsoft 365 Nigerian User Group. So you can actually drop a feedback form. When you fill in the form, your email address, so the WhatsApp link to join this community. If you're interested in the Microsoft 365 Azure Power Platform Dynamics 365. I'm actually a member to each of these user group. So I will get the links. I will actually send an email with the links to join the group, so you can actually join the group. So Solomon, can you check and chime in on the remote internship in Microsoft Cloud Computing resources that we have available? You're talking on mute actually, Solomon. You're talking on mute.
It's always happening. Like you can't avoid it. So yeah, for that
Yeah.
question, when we are speaking of internship in tech, there's internship in almost every tech field, right? And for Microsoft, it's not different for Microsoft. We have organizations that they need interns that could work on their cloud services. And when we are talking of Microsoft, we are also talking of Azure, and there are some people working as DevOps, right, on Azure, and you can be an intern for those roles. We also have support engineers, right? In Nigeria, for example, we have one of Microsoft partner, which I think they have. I don't think any company has hired as much as they do. Like the number of staff they have a lot, right? So they take people with the basic knowledge of cloud computing. You don't need to have that in there because they are going to train you. They also do training. There's an internship program they also do. Once you apply and you can go through the internship, you go through training for about probably 3 months and all of that. Then they actually make you get your hands dirty on life um support, right? So there are a lot of opportunities there. For the remote job aspect, I think I have a lot of friends in Nigeria that they work remotely and with they are not working in Nigeria. They work from home. Most of these technical support engineers I was talking of for Exchange Enterprise and the rest of it, some of them they get their jobs on Upwork and it's a remote job. They just stay from their house and they do all of that. They log into their computer, sign into their work VM, and once they are done, they log off. So there are a lot of opportunities when we are talking about remote. So somebody was talking about VMs. I don't really get the question about virtual machine, but virtual machine, as the name sounds, right? It just means virtual machine. Now, what it just simply means is for you now, you have your computer in front of you, and probably your computer, you have RAM there, you have hard drive, and all of everything you need to make your computer work. For a virtual machine, these resources can be paid for on the cloud. So you can actually pay for a particular processor. And now, when you're paying for that processor, you're also paying for the RAM that the machine will be using. You will also select the OS you want. Once you select the OS you want, you set up your network, right? Because the virtual machine needs to have an IP. So you will create your virtual network, assign an IP to the machine. You can then choose to configure your network security group so that you can block the ports you don't want, or you can block ports so that people don't access the virtual machine from a particular port over the internet. You can do a lot of configuration around it, and then when you're done, you just log into the machine. So most times, if you want to log into the machine, you just need probably the IP of the machine, the password, username, and then you're in the machine. So that's basically what virtual machine is. But this conversation is not for training, like I said. It's not to tell people, oh, this is the types of cloud computing. This is the services and all of that, or this is what virtual machine is just to let people know that some of the questions they are asking, these are the answers, and if they can follow those this advice, right, they can start getting their hands dirty, they can start doing stuff, and before you know, you become one of the cloud engineer you've been hearing of. Yeah. So that's basically what this event is for. And I think we planned using 1 hour and we've used extra 5 minutes. So before we go, yes, I forgot to mention something. We are coming up with a plan, right? So the plan we have, that's another thing that gave birth to this event. We would be looking at some of the Microsoft Learn and some of the modules there. We'll pick a weekend and try to explain it. And we would not just explain it, we would also do demos, right? After doing the explanation for a particular module and demos, the upper week, we try to have an interaction like this so that you ask questions based on the demo we're performing or what we're doing. Why we don't want to do both the demo and interaction the same day, so that we don't take too much of your time and our time, right? So we try to explain, do demos, then the next upper week, we try to get the people that were in house when we're doing the demo and explaining. We try to have like an interactive sections and all of that. If maybe they were trying it and they came across a particular issue, and we can actually help them with, we try to tell them what exactly caused the issue and all of that. Yeah. So we'll be coming up with that program. Is free. It's going to be happening weekends, and we'll just try to see how we can help a lot of people maybe that want to just understand what's happening in the cloud, just get to see what's happening. Yeah. So that's all I have to say for now. Um for me, I don't have anything to say anymore. I would like to thank Emmanuel and Adekunle, because I would have been doing all this by myself, but they were so generous, right, to be here with me, and is still part of the community that we are talking about. So you can always connect with us on LinkedIn. This is our name, right? So for those people that are watching us live on, because we are actually broadcasting this on LinkedIn and Facebook. So for those of you on Facebook, yeah, you can. This is still my name. For those of you on LinkedIn, this is my name. This is Emmanuel's name. This is Adekunle name. You can always send us connection. I'm always in the answering questions that are related to cloud. Yeah. So if you have questions that are related to cloud, you can always ask me. I'm very much available to answer those questions. So that's my remark. I don't know if you have anything to say before we just say goodbye to everyone.
Yeah, I just have a quick one. I dropped a feedback for a form. So for those that want to start like Chudi, for example, now you can follow us on LinkedIn. You can also fill in the form. There'll be like a follow-up email on our, on the plan for the training, both from Microsoft 365 fundamentals. Everything, you receive an email with the details there. Then Aisha, also, I know you want to you're actually excited about the demos and interactions. So we are actually excited for this, because one of my plans as a person is that in 2023 I want to give back to as much people, those that are interested to come into cloud. So that's actually one of the reasons why I actually volunteer to be a code lead with the Microsoft security, and also volunteer to be the program lead with the Microsoft 365 Nigeria user group. I'm actually working with Solomon on that. So we've actually had a plan already throughout December, January. We are actually discussing plans. We created a plan on the learning part, so which is actually going to start in February. But please fill in the form so that you can get notifications about the event, and you can also join the community where there will be interactions and you can learn more. Thank you. Adekunle, any remarks from you, please?
Adekunle, are you here? Do you have anything to say before we go? Oh, okay. I think probably his network is not, is having an issue. Okay. So thank
Yeah,
you so
yeah.
much,
So I
everyone.
just to
Okay.
cap it all off, I think you guys have said it all. But I just want to say to everyone that has actually joined this call, and if you are if you are looking forward to joining the cloud, or you are looking forward to taking up a career in the cloud, please don't be scared. The cloud is quite interesting. It's just that you may have to double work, but then I can tell you the cloud is quite interesting. I mean, look at Solomon, look at Emmanuel. I'm sure you can see the the interest in them. So just to let you know, you shouldn't be scared. There's nothing there actually. The cloud is the cloud. We keep on exploring. As you can see, everyone on this call, there are a lot of MCTs as well. I can see on this call. No, there is no day we don't learn. We learn from each other. There is no I know more than you know or stuff like that. But just to put it to you that the cloud is very interesting and it's a very good way to start. Just pick a track, just like Manuel has said. That is exactly the main point I want you to get out from this meeting. Just look for one track and follow through. You don't have to do everything. Let me even put it to you, you can't do everything. So just pick a track and then follow through. Thank you guys. Over to you, Solomon. Thanks.
Yeah, so I would like to thank everyone for taking their time to join us in this live session. Yeah, and I would also like to thank Dan again for making this possible so that we can stream on different platform. And for those of you that probably you want to join other communities, we have communities in LinkedIn. We have the Microsoft Design. We have the M365 Microsoft Speakers Club on LinkedIn. You can actually join that platform. We have a lot of professionals. They post stuffs there, so you can look, learn from it, and all of that. So Emmanuel is also going to reach those that are going to fill the form he submitted with updates on other platforms they can join for, because he's also managing some platform, especially for those in Nigeria. Yeah, so you can just join those platform. And for now, thank you so much, and have a lovely evening, afternoon, or morning, wherever you are. Yeah, bye.
Bye all. So I have people that are
Mm.
saying that they can't fill in the form. You can just connect on LinkedIn. I will share the form with you on
Okay,
LinkedIn.
okay. So just post it on LinkedIn. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.